I want you to take Sooner football, two very opinionated and intelligent women, and what do you get? Talk Sporty.
Yeah, you do.
I'm Dana.
I'm Shawn.
And we are here to talk Sporty with you. This is Season 1, Episode 6. We are coming to you after the first loss, hopefully the only loss of the OU football season of 2022. Yeah. It's the day after, and we've had a little bit of time to reflect on the game. Tell me some of your thoughts, Shawn, about the game.
Okay, thought number one is I don't think I was prepared yet to do a podcast after we lost.
Oh, me too. After the game.
Talk about a loss. I knew it would. I mean, it's not like I really truly thought that we would go undefeated all season, but I just was hoping it'd be later in the season and not after a home game.
I wholeheartedly agree. As we were leaving the stadium, I thought, we're going to have to do a podcast about this. And I don't really want to.
That's exactly what I thought. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to talk about this loss.
I don't want to.
I did not. I was not mentally prepared for this. I'm sure the players aren't mentally prepared for what they're going through today either.
Correct. Yeah. They're having to watch the game film and come up with explanations as to why they looked so bad out on the field.
Yeah, why they could not stop a quarterback who usually can stop himself.
Right. We know he's not a very good quarterback. No. And we let him get almost 150 yards rushing.
Yeah, he was a good quarterback last night.
And how many passing?
Oh, I don't know. Here, I got it here somewhere.
Okay.
He 234 yards passing. Yes.
And 150 yards rushing.
Yeah.
One guy.
Yeah.
All you got to do is pull that one guy down or block the balls when they come out of his hands or something. Yeah. We did not get pressure on him the whole night.
Yeah. Adrian Martinez, I mean, I was not expecting it the whole time. In fact, I was talking to somebody before the game and they were asking what I thought. And I thought, well, I think we've got this. And K-State can be a thorn in our sides. We all know this.
Yes.
But I told them, I go, Adrian Martinez will beat himself.
Oh,
and the whole game, I just kept thinking, okay, just keep giving him rope because eventually
he'll hang himself.
Yeah. And he had the game of his life.
Yes. He looked like a Heisman Trophy contender.
Yeah.
Because our D allowed him to have that much say in the game outcome.
And I do wonder if it's either like the start of something for him, like he's turned something around, and so it's just eventually all clicked finally for him, or if he will never have another game like this ever again. I kind of think the latter, but who knows?
Yeah, I do too, but maybe his move to K-State has allowed him to become a better player.
Yeah.
They scored 10 points on our speed D, and I'm using that kind of ironically, but they scored 10 points. Nebraska, he was the leader of the Nebraska team last year.
Yes.
That scored 10 points on our defense, and that was a year ago, and our defense is better this year. We've seen it.
Yes.
We know they can play better, and yet they scored 41 points on us this year.
Well, we were in a 14-0 hole, and I remember thinking, okay, they came out and they scored, and then we didn't. Well, we did that against Nebraska last week, right?
Correct.
And so I'm like, okay, we don't panic yet. And then they scored again, and I'm like, okay, we still don't need to panic. But that 14-0 hole ended up being huge because we just never could come out of it. And our defense was it was not like what we've seen all year. We've seen so much penetration. We've seen so much pressure on the quarterback. And one of our stars on defense, and who had been prior to that, a national leader in sacks and tackles for loss, Reggie Grimes, is not even on the stat line as far as having a tackle this week.
Correct. And it's like, what happened there?
Right.
Was he double teamed, or was the offensive player against him that much better to keep him out of the ability to tackle any of those tackling areas?
Right. And
I don't know.
I've laying all the cards on the table. I did not spend much time looking into the personnel for K-State and what their O-line is like or anything. So, and during the game, that's not how I watch a game. I'm not paying attention. Is Reggie Grime being double and triple teamed?
Correct.
But
I don't either.
Let's assume he was. Then shouldn't that free up some of our other guys? I mean, because that means if they've got 2 or 3 guys on Reggie, then that's 1 or 2 guys that aren't on other people.
Right.
So it was just really kind of perplexing.
Well, and our D-line just didn't get that penetration, like you said. They weren't rushing him. He seemed to have all the time in the world. If we were able to corral Deuce Vaughn and or keep him from getting the ball or stop him at the line, if they had a 3rd and long, we knew Martinez was going to pass. He'd have all the time in the world to pass, or the last possession scamper for a 57-yard pickup on his legs and nobody around him. Yes. Or he'd throw this nice little pass over the middle to somebody who was wide open because we didn't have anybody covering that guy.
Or we might just have a penalty.
That's true. We had several of those penalties, yes. That would, we were going to get off the field. They were going to have to punt. And then, nope, we kicked ourselves in the leg and ended up giving them another set of 4 more downs. And they'd roll on down the field.
At least once they had 4th and 1 and we jumped off sides, I believe. Something anyway. I mean, it's just we kept kicking ourselves in the foot.
Well, and they had 2 4th down conversions. They were 4th and short, but they got both of them easily. I mean, just easily. And when we're trying to do a goal line stand, and we're on about the 3, and he just Martinez. Of course, it's going to be a quarterback keep. He just keeps the ball and he jumps about 8 feet in the air over everybody. And then he did a little somersault action into the end zone.
Yes. He put his hand down and then flipped over.
It's like, how? How did we miss those? How did we miss those? So hopefully the coaches will be looking at those plays on film and trying to come up with a better way to prevent stuff like that from happening in the future.
Yeah, and it's just, I saw too many tackles, even not big gains from them, but when our secondary guys are making those tackles, that's a problem, right? I mean, when our tackle leaders are our secondary, that's not great.
Right. That definitely means they've gotten at least 5 yards, maybe closer to 10 yards down the field before we're able to tackle them and pull them down.
So hopefully they'll figure out, and maybe our defensive philosophy has been to get that penetration. And so now we have to figure out what are we going to do when we're playing a team where we can't do that, right? You know, that worked those first 3 games. Well, it didn't work last night. And so, and I have faith in the staff that they can do that, but
I do too.
Just hard to watch.
There definitely were halftime adjustments, and they seemed to contain Deuce Vaughn much better in the second half.
Yes.
It's like, but they didn't contain Martinez
where his center of gravity was and how he had to hit him to be able to bring him down.
Yes, because whereas in the first half they just would kind of jump at him and he'd just keep going
under there.
Yeah, he was under him
or whatever. I mean, he's like a little Darren Sproles. You
know? Oh yes, reminded me of Darren Sproles a lot. Yeah,
and we were laughing during the game. Brett's like, I don't think I've ever seen somebody on that field that short. And I go, well, I mean, Q and Darren Sproles. And so I looked up his height, and he's listed as 5'6", and Brett's like, he is not 5'6".
So he's 5'3". He's 5'4". Wow. I didn't realize he was that small. Okay.
Well, in freshman year, he was listed as 5'5". So he's grown an inch since he was a freshman, which, you know, he's a guy that can happen. But Brett's right. He doesn't look like he's 5'6". You know, I'm not sure how tall Martinez is, though, because, you know, that may make it look different. The perception of that. But anyway, he was tough. But Martinez rushed more than he did, which, anyway.
Oh, yeah. Close to 150 yards rushing for Martinez and 120 yards rushing for Deuce Vaughn. So they beat us with their legs, but then Martinez beat us with his arm.
In there, too, yeah.
And I had always said, we stopped the run, let him beat us with his arm, because his arm isn't that good.
Yeah, he's going to eventually throw a pick, right?
But the plays, at least they had dialed up last night, he was able to complete those passes.
Yeah,
at least, he was at least, I don't know, 50%, 55% pass completion. So, yeah, back to the drawing board for our defense. I listened to the post-game, Teddy Lehman and Chris Plank did some interviews.
Right.
And one of the ones with Deshaun White, he's like, I'm a leader. I'm responsible. I've got to realize that we didn't play our best game, and we can't change that.
Right.
We can't take the loss away and make it a win, but we can be harder and work harder in practice. We can turn it on ourselves and realize that we made the mistakes. We allowed 500 yards total offense against us. It is our fault, and we've got to step up and make sure that we're held accountable and do better in the next game. So
well, that's what you want your leader to say,
yes,
right? You want to hear that kind of thing from your leader.
It's got to be a positive thing. We've got to do better for the next game and prepare better and just be better prepared all over.
And I'm sure it was totally unexpected because they lost to Tulane.
Right.
Who lost yesterday?
I'd seen an interview with Jeffrey Johnson, who's our nose tackle on the D-line, and he had said he called. He's the transfer from Tulane, and so he said he called or texted his buddies and said, "Great win, way to go." Yeah. And he was fired up to play him. I'm like, we needed a little more. Why didn't we get some input from from Tulane's D-line as to how we needed to proceed? And I'm sure that our coaches looked at all that, but Jeffrey had the in, and we certainly didn't apply any of that knowledge, if that had anything to do with it. Back to work. Yeah, back to work, back to the drawing board.
And, we can talk about the offense too. I mean, they also put up big numbers. If you just look at the stat line, except for penalties and time of possession, the stats are very similar to what K-State stats were.
Now, we were able to go and score in like 25 seconds or 30 was the last possession early in the first quarter. That first quarter score we got with Theo Weiss, it was like a 35, 40-second score. Couple of minutes each time we'd score. Whereas K-State, again, nature of their offense is to take the ball and make it a 6-minute drive, pour it down our throats. And we'd jump out there on offense and score in 30 seconds or a minute and jump back off.
Tired because of
that.
I'm
sure. Yeah. Especially the first half.
But we didn't have those long sustained drives,
Right. We could not keep them going. If we couldn't get a quick pass downfield for a large yardage or a big run, we had a hard time just getting 10 yards and then getting another 10 yards and getting another 10 yards. We usually, those possessions, we would usually end up having to punt.
And then Turk, because he's a great punter, sometimes he outpunts his coverage.
Yes.
Sometimes.
And he got it in the end zone twice when we needed it to land inside the goal line.
In fact, one of those times when he was punting, I think it was the second half, but we got a delay of game. And I'm like, well, actually, that's probably better for Turk. And then I think that might have been the one where that guy, number 81, I can't remember what his name is, but he almost stops it at the 1 foot line and then it rolls.
And it rolled. Yes. Yes, I think so that close. Was. Yes. I think that did happen. And then we did have a mistake on special teams, or we didn't, it was a kickoff. And we had how many guys? Well, I was thinking when we kicked off to them, their little guy gets it and starts running it back. And I thought he was going to score a touchdown. Yes. Luckily, Schmidt, our kicker, was able to kind of grab at him by the leg and slow him down enough that some of the other defenders could get out there and tackle him. But he made it to our 40.
I know.
And that that allowed them. They scored a touchdown on that possession. If we
so
could have
that's
pinned
true.
them back,
Even special teams,
even
we
starting
had
at the
some-
25, it would have been much better for us.
Had some special teams issues too.
Yeah.
But I guess we should talk about offense. And so yes, they put up lots of numbers. But that's not necessarily enough.
Right.
And actually, if we had done a podcast last week talking about Nebraska, I was going to talk about this with Dylan because he throws darts and they're just these like, whew, he throws them fast, but he throws them hard.
They may be hard to catch.
Yes. And I think and he doesn't ever just like throw that touch pass, that high kind of lobbing pass. He did throw one to Mims yesterday and we got a touchdown on it. But one of those passes to Stoops should have been like that. And it was that dart and Stoops couldn't quite get to it, because he didn't, put any air underneath it.
And that would have been a 4th down completion. Yeah.
And a touchdown probably.
Yep.
And, and then there were times that he wasn't accurate. Another one to Stoops where Stoops, was open but had to dive for it. And I know you're trying to keep it away from the defender too. But, I mean, Stoops he wasn't going to be able to dive that far. Threw it over Marvin's head. One of the ones that Farouk caught, he had to go way up to, catch it. I mean, any other receiver probably wouldn't have caught that ball.
Yes.
So Dylan does, and I'm not bagging on Dylan, but there are some things that he's not all world at, and his accuracy isn't always the best. I mean, when he's accurate, he's like spot on, but he's not always accurate. He doesn't always have enough touch on the ball, and
he did seem hurried quite a bit of the time. And I know they were getting pressure on him. They would blitz, K-State would blitz and get pressure on him. And he seemed a little, discombobulated, just like, I'm in a hurry. I got to get rid of the ball as fast as I can. And I totally understand that. I would run the opposite direction if they were running at me. I'd say, oh, here's the ball. You can have it. Please don't tackle me. That's going to hurt.
Like it is.
I totally get that, but he seemed more hurried, which this is a better defense than we've played up until this time. So he's got to get more comfortable with that, and he's got to get more comfortable with getting rid of the ball, but also, is there any way I can get it to a receiver and extend the play as opposed to just throwing it away?
Yes. Yeah. And then
he didn't lose the ball. He didn't throw any picks.
Right.
He didn't fumble. He didn't get tackled from behind and fumble. So I'm very proud of him for that.
Right.
But he just needs a little more calmness in the pocket, maybe. And I'm sure that goes along with just a little more practice. Just getting used to it, I would assume.
Yeah. Hopefully. I mean, and hopefully they'll work on those things. I also just think there are times that it seemed to me that there are times that the offensive game plan wasn't as creative as it maybe could have been.
I was thinking about that.
Half,
yes.
Gray was getting more yards.
Lots of runs.
Sometimes if at first it's just like handoff, like easy handoff too, not counter plays, not no pitches.
Did we run any end around? Did we run any?
I think we did with Farouk.
One.
Well, and I mean, one of the end arounds we didn't get any yards on, really. I mean, he got maybe a yard. That's a lot of work for a yard.
Yeah.
But there were a couple times too, I noticed the middle was open and we didn't have receivers there. And I'm assuming, some of that was game plan too. So anyway.
And there were times that I thought, and Dylan had, like 60 yards rushing. So he did keep the ball and run it some. But there were a few times that I thought if he had not handed it off and kept it and gone to the weak side, he would have made a first down. Right. Again, we don't want to get him injured, but there were times that I thought maybe.
But we want to win the game.
Yes, we want to win the game. and maybe we could have, had him keep it a few more times, get a few more yards. But the running game did start to open up in the third quarter. It did. But in the third quarter, we were behind a touchdown in the first quarter. Second quarter, we scored the same amount. Third quarter is when we needed to come out and score a couple of touchdowns, and we each got a field goal. I mean, that's a disappointing third quarter with halftime adjustments, and you're seeing the running game happen. But that's when we started seeing more penalties too.
Yeah, but can we just talk? And we should never have been in the position. K-State played a fabulous game.
Oh, they did.
I'm not going to take anything.
They did, and they're a good team
from K-State.
Yeah, very good team.
I know people can do what ifs all day long, but I am sorry that pass interference. That was not pass interference.
It sure did not look like it.
They scored on that possession. Otherwise, we would have been.
It could have been an interception. It would have been our ball.
Yes.
That's 7 points off the board for them, and who knows what it would have done for us.
If it was any kind of pass interference, it was offensive pass interference. I'm sorry. I was not okay with that.
It had to have been. Our guy was still on the ground. His feet were on the ground.
And he's looking where the ball's coming.
And he's going to catch that ball, and their offensive wide receiver jumped onto his head almost.
Yes.
To crash and get the ball. And then their flag's thrown on us.
Yeah.
It's like, you're sadly mistaken, referee.
Agreed. I just had
we should be able to throw a challenge flag on that. The crowd should, Yes. Come on.
Challenge flag for the crowd.
And like you said, we shouldn't have been in that sort of predicament, but that was at least one penalty we know that was not called appropriately.
And one of those plays that's the kind of thing that had they either not called the pass interference or they'd called pass interference, offensive pass interference, that right there could have turned the game.
Oh, a game changer. Yes. Yeah, because the crowd would have gotten fired up and
they
excited.
would have scored. Yeah, probably. Although
7
there were
points off
times
the
on
game.
fourth downs they did things that they shouldn't have. So anyway, should we talk about this anymore?
I guess we shouldn't. But we had plenty of penalties. Way too many penalties. Most of them were false starts. I think you said 11 penalties for
11 for 87
yards.
Yeah, that's too.
Way too many.
And they were at such key critical times. I mean, one of those false starts, it was 4th and 1. We were getting ready to go for it, and we had a false start.
Right.
Well, then 4th and 6, you're not going for it.
You're not going to go for that. Yeah. There were a couple of different O linemen had false starts. And if that happened on first down, it seemed like we could never recover those yards. When it happened, it set us back, and we ended up punting on those possessions, which is not a good way to make points. Our punter is not supposed to be making points.
No, he's not.
So we've got to get ready for TCU.
We do. So I haven't paid a ton of attention to K-State. I mean, I know TCU beat SMU. Of course, Mordecai threw some picks. How many picks did Mordecai throw?
I don't know.
At least 2, I think.
I watched part of the game, and they looked good. They didn't look great.
Yeah.
But they've got something to prove.
Yes.
As they always do.
Yes.
Of course, they don't have Gary Patterson. And I'm kind of okay that they don't have Gary Patterson on the sidelines.
Hold that thought until we play Texas. Okay. Yes. So next week we are glad that TCU doesn't have Gary Patterson, and we'll get back to Gary Patterson.
Should we talk about poor Texas?
Yeah, well, that's something.
We could talk about that. That did at least put a smile on my face.
Yes.
That Texas Tech defeated poor Texas in an overtime. I'm still not sure how Texas got to the overtime. We were getting into our game, and I just knew that Texas was ahead. I mean, Texas Tech was ahead. They're going to win the game, and then I see it's an overtime.
Okay,
so I don't know how Texas
pulled
that off.
I will tell you, because we were at a restaurant. We stayed to kind of watch that game. I mean, until it went into overtime. And so 25 seconds left. Tex won, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
How did Texas
They don't squib kick it. They kick it into the end zone. They don't do what we did against Georgia that year. And then they go into that prevent defense, and they just let
Hudson Card
dink it all the way down the field. And then their Texas kicker kicks, I think it might have been the longest field goal he's ever kicked. Or it was close to his long.
And it's not Dicker.
No,
it's
Dicker,
a different.
the
Yeah, he graduated.
He graduated, thank goodness. No, their kicker's name is Bert Auburn. Is that?
Okay. Auburn. Okay.
And yes, and on the radio it sounds like they're saying Burnt Auburn, and I'm like, did somebody name their kid that just because they want them to go to Texas and like burnt orange? And anyway, that's a whole nother thing. We can get into that more when we talk more about Texas. But so really Tech should not have even let Texas get down the field in 25 seconds, and they had no timeouts left.
Oh,
Texas
my goodness.
had no timeouts left.
Oh, my goodness.
So it should have been a done deal in regulation. But then we're walking towards the stadium, and it's on TV, and I guess Texas got the first possession, and they fumbled it and lost it, and Tech got it. And so then, all Tech has to do is score on their possession, and they
game
kicked
over.
A field goal. Game over.
Okay.
Yeah, go Tech. So, yes, at least.
But I thought Texas was back.
Oh,
haven't we been? They've been telling us that for how many years?
Just a few, even before Sarkisian. I can't
Texas
remember
is
how
back.
many coaches back.
They're in the back of the line.
Yeah, they have always have such a great recruiting class and stuff. But yeah, they're back.
Yeah,
they're back.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll see.
We'll see. Well, anything else we need to talk about?
So I started that thing where we talked about, tell me about your favorite. So this week, instead of your favorite, I was going to do this last week if we'd done a Nebraska one. But tell me about your first remembrance of OU football. Not necessarily when you went, but just like whatever, your first realization of OU football.
I was a kid. It would have been like first grade, second grade, maybe around 6 or 7. And my mom was an OU football fan. Okay. And so she would watch it on TV on Saturdays.
So the women in your family come by it honestly.
Yes. So if they were playing, which they weren't always playing back then, there weren't
It wasn't always on TV.
Yeah. When we were that age, I won't say when. There might be a game on ABC and there might be a game on CBS. And I lived in the country and we only got ABC and CBS. We didn't get any. There was no ESPN and all that sort of thing. But if they were playing on a Saturday, we would watch. We would watch the football games, and that would have been. That would have been the teams, with Tinker Owens. Kyle Davis,
Salmon Brothers.
The Salmon Brothers. We watched. Right. Yeah, I grew up watching them play football. I didn't necessarily know that much about football. Like, my dad didn't usually watch it with us, so it would be Mom and me watching.
Okay.
And so
your dad wasn't
we
watching.
would cheer.
Your mom.
Yeah, we would
that.
Cheer, but I didn't necessarily know
No,
positions,
right.
And I knew there was offense and defense, and if you score the most points, you win the game.
Of course.
But not necessarily that
and
much
back then,
about
you scored
everything.
A lot of points.
Oh yes, they scored a lot of
half
points.
100 on them,
oh
baby.
Yeah, that option option football, triple option. Who's Thomas Law? Whoever who's going to dish it out? Who's going? Sure. He got it. And he got a big run. And it was very exciting to watch.
Wishbone.
Oh yes,
Okay.
yes.
All
so
right.
that would be my first experience. What about yours?
So mine, and I just vaguely remembered this when I lived in Oklahoma City, kindergarten and first grade. So I was probably in first grade. So about what you're talking about. My dad took me to an OU Colorado game.
Oh, fun.
Don't really remember a lot about the game. I just remember going to the game. And then my next game in person was actually when I was a senior in high school, and it was also OU Colorado. That's a story for another time, though. But I do remember, because when I was thinking about this when we were playing Nebraska last week, so OU Nebraska used to always be kind of for all the marbles or oranges.
Yes.
If you want,
yes, that's right.
if you
The
wanna-
winner
Yes.
take all and go to the Orange Bowl.
Yes, oranges on the field, all the good stuff. And lots of times, if you won the Orange Bowl, good chance you're going to be a national champion too, right? Back in the day. And so we lived in California after we moved away from Oklahoma City. And every Thanksgiving, it was usually OU Nebraska
yes.
on TV, right?
That's true.
And so, and that was a game that was almost always on TV, that Big 8 game. And I wasn't quite like you where I wanted to sit in front of the TV and watch a football game back then. And so the game would be on, and I'm like, oh, another OU Nebraska football game. Took me a while to get to the point where I really, really appreciated it all, like I do now. But yes, so that's kind of my early memories of Sooner football.
The first OU football game I attended, I was a freshman at OU. So yeah, that's the first time I went to any, and we had freshman tickets.
Yes,
and they really weren't very good seats. But we had a pretty good team, and it was fun. That was that's when it got in my blood.
And we had
guess.
assigned seats as students.
Yes,
back
we
then.
did.
Yeah, where now.
But then they would crowd everybody in. You know, everybody'd crowd in, and you're like, I should have a little bit bigger room for me, for my body.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, how fun!
Yes. So I think I've got. I'll have some other questions as we get closer to the Texas game.
Okay. Well, it's in 2 weeks.
About tell me your favorite and all that kind of stuff.
So 11 o'clock kickoff, not tip off. 11 o'clock kickoff with TCU on Saturday,
Yes.
and I think it's on ABC.
Carter.
And yes, and then we have another 11 o'clock kickoff in the Dallas Metroplex the next week. OU Texas at the Cotton Bowl.
I hate those 11
at the State Fair
for the Texas game.
Yeah.
I'd rather get my corn dog before.
Why don't we do a 2:30? But yeah, it's 11 o'clock for both of them.
Sun in our
We've
eyes
got to do better. We've got to beat these Texas teams.
We do.
Yes.
Let's win Texas.
And take names.
Let's win Texas.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right.
I guess that's it. I guess that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Okay, Boomer.
Sooner.
Go OU.